And Deputy Burton has 6 minutes.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I want to thank Deputy Jan O'Sullivan for moving this motion. The former US President Harry S. Truman had a sign on his desk which said, "The buck stops here." This government seems intent on ignoring that old-fashioned idea of accountability. The buck stops anywhere but with the Taoiseach and the Minister for Health. The shameful goings-on in our cancer services are probably the greatest scandal to face the health services since the blood contamination crisis. What we now know points to systemic failures, not just isolated mistakes of administration. Systemic failure has to be the responsibility of the Minister and of the government of the day. These systemic failures are ultimately life-threatening and life-shortening for a significant number of women, as with the blood contamination crisis. All the advice that women are given to reduce deaths from breast cancer involves mass screening, early diagnosis and prompt treatment to save lives. The women in Portlaoise, the women in Cork University Hospital did what they were advised to do and are now in some cases left in an unbearable situation. They placed their trust and their confidence in the HSE, the health services and in the Health Minister. The failure to diagnose them properly will undoubtedly lead to much physical and emotional suffering and pain for the women and their families. First Portlaoise, now Cork University Hospital, where up to 16 women have been misdiagnosed. This prompts the question, is what's happening in Portlaoise and Cork simply the tip of an iceberg? Is there systemic failure in our health services? Given what we now know, is it adequate that the HSE should be investigating itself? If you look back at comparable situations, such as the contaminated blood scandal, it was only when there was a full and independent examination that the real truths and complexities of the situation began to emerge. The key questions now are who knew what, when, and how did they respond? Were at-risk women left to wait an unnecessarily long time? Why did 97 women, the Minister for Health and Professor Drum only find out that all was not well in a Q&A session in the Oireachtas Health Committee last Thursday morning? On August the 29th, the HSE informed the Department of Health and the Minister for Health that it had ceased the provision of breast radiology services at Portlaoise, placed a consultant radiologist on leave and had set up a review of all breast radiology diagnoses at the hospital from November 2003 to August 2007. This review was to be carried out by Dr. Anne O'Doherty and is due to report back at the end of this month, but we still don't have it. Also, it appears that the HSE had in early September asked the local surgeon to review the clinical notes of patients who had ultrasound procedures. So there were two reviews being carried out independently of each other, were they? But apparently unknown to the Minister and the Chief Executive of the HSE. The HSE was developed as a flagship model of a centralised health service. In designing this creature, the Minister confined by choice her role to policy, openings and speeches. Like Napoleon, she made provision for an army of administrators who would know everything about the system at any one time. But the sad reality of her creation is that Minister Harney is now out of touch and the HSE is now out of control. How many staff does it take to change a light bulb in a hospital? That's a fair question. But how many ministers and ministers for state does it take in the Department of Health to address a crisis? She and her team of four junior ministers cost the taxpayer in excess of $2 million a year. while the senior executives in the HSE also earn very high salaries. It begs the question, are they worth the money? Are they worth the wages that the taxpayer is paying? In this tangled mess, three elements stand out. Firstly, the Minister's ideologically driven desire to have a full, for-profit healthcare industry in this country. Secondly, the role of special interests, corporates and investors seeking the lucrative tax breaks and contracts arising from the Minister's initiatives, such as co-located private hospitals. Thirdly, the loss of morale among frontline workers such as doctors and nurses, who are becoming increasingly alienated from a minister and a management that appears weighed down by incompetence and over-administration. We have a toxic mix now at the top of our health service. Arrogance, notions of impregnability and exhaustion as one crisis follows another. The worry about our hospitals used to be that the staff in the hospitals weren't washing their hands. Now we see the Minister washing her hands and refusing to take responsibility for the crisis. Truman said that the book stopped here. Is the Minister prepared to acknowledge that the book should stop with her? For the sake of the people of Ireland, the time has come for you to go, Minister.